Okay, reading with Emmy. She's looking right in the camera. Today it is Justine the Unicorn Pegasus. Don't go anywhere, Miss Sam. We're reading the book. Silly cat. Can you see the picture there? There we go. Okay. Mom, said Justine, I want to take ballet lessons. Please. Justine's mother turned her neck and saw her sweet daughter peeking up at her with large blue eyes. Justine's mother smiled, and just from looking at her, oh, Justine's mother. Let me try that all over again. We're going to have to edit that out. Mom, said Justine, I want to take ballet lessons. Please. Justine's mother turned her neck and saw her sweet daughter peeking up at her with large blue eyes. Justine's mother smiled just from looking at her beautiful daughter. Ballet lessons, her mother asked doubtfully. You know, it would be polite if you faced the other way to the camera, but we'll just take the fact that you're happy today, Emmy. Oh, yes, 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 Justine said very loudly as she flapped her wings, stood on her back legs, jumped and hugged her mom. Well, said her mother calmly as her forelock and mane whipped about her face and neck, you can certainly try, but you're not shaped like the other ballerinas in your book. It might be difficult for you. Justine only heard yes. The next day, Justine went to the ballet teacher's classroom. Mrs. Shell, said Justine, may I take ballet lessons from you? My mom said it was okay. Well, said Mrs. Shell, the rest of the girls in my class have two long legs, long, graceful necks, and arms that seem to float on air. You are not shaped quite like them. It might be difficult for you. See, she's got in her mind's eye there what she's thinking of when she thinks of a ballerina. I know, said Justine, but I have a long, graceful neck, wings that do float on air, and I only have two extra legs. I just love ballet. I would really like to try. Very well, said Mrs. Shell with a smile. Then we shall try. A few weeks of ballet classes passed. All right, class, said Mrs. Shell. You have been practicing your steps very carefully every day. I want you to line up one by one, perform 3 pas de bourrées across the floor. Oh no, thought Justine. That step has been very hard for me. Justine lined up. When it was her turn, she took a deep breath, held her chin up, and she did it. Oh my, thought Justine, I did it, even with everyone looking at me. Justine flapped her wings and jumped a few steps. Hold on. Emmy has taken a trip to the other chair. I'm going to see if I can get her back over here. My baby cat. Will you come and sit with me a little more over here where you can be seen? Okay? Would that be all right? Folks like to see your pretty face while I'm reading the book. I did not bring your lunch. I can do that next time. Would you be willing to sit and hang out here? You don't have to look at yourself on the camera. Okay, so back we are with the story. There's my sweet girl. Thank you for hanging out. I'm so happy, 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 thought Justine. She folded her wings and placed her legs in a graceful position, put her chin up, and looked around her. What happened? She thought. All of the other students are lying about on the floor. You see that? They're all tumbled. The other students were lying on the floor, tangled up with each other. Mrs. Shell was sitting on the floor. Her eyebrows were way up high. She was looking at Justine. So were the other students. Some students were laughing, and others had frowns on their faces. Justine, said Mrs. Shell, You did a marvelous job with your steps, but you must not flap your wings when you get excited. It sends us all tumbling." "I'm sorry," said Justine. "I never knock over anyone when I get excited at home." "We are all right, Justine," said Mrs. Shell with a smile. "Just please be careful not to do it again. Perhaps you should try a twist of your long, beautiful neck and a few dance steps with your feet the next time you get excited. No wings." "Yes, Mrs. Shell," said Justine. She lowered her neck, feeling sad. "I'll try." "Class is dismissed," said Mrs. Shell. The two children who had laughed the hardest walked outside with Justine. Make sure you can see the picture. Yep. They draped their arms over her neck. Their names were Celine and Susan. "Cheer up, Justine. It's okay," said Susan. "Truly, it's all right," said Celine. The girls looked at each other over Justine's neck and grinned, happy to be with a new friend. Then they hugged Justine and continued walking with her. It was time for the recital, where the group of ballerinas would perform a dance for their families and friends. Everyone was excited and nervous to perform with so many people watching. Justine knew her wings and legs could do the steps. "I just hope I don't start thinking about everyone watching and forget the dance moves," worried Justine. She's looking a little worried. Everyone tried very hard. They were doing very well. Mrs. Shell, sitting in the first row of the audience, was smiling a very big smile. At the end of the dance, all of the dancers were in one line at the front of the stage. It was time to do the susu, where the dancers were holding the same move at the same time. Justine saw to her left that Susan was beginning to wobble. "Oh no," thought Justine, "I need to help Susan." Very carefully, Justine unfolded her left wing and started tilting it down towards Susan. I'll pet your head in just a second, Emmy. Hold on. I have to turn the page. Mrs. Shell drew a deep breath as she saw Justine's wings start to move. The other dancers saw Mrs. Shell's raised eyebrows and glanced at Justine. They also saw her wing moving, and remembering how they'd all gone tumbling before, drew deep breaths too. Gasp, gasp. Justine slowly let her wing droop so that Susan could reach out and touch the tips of her end feathers. That was just what Susan needed to regain her balance, straighten her wobble, and continue to dance without a fall. Whew! Mrs. Shell and all the other dancers let out their held breath at the same time. Mrs. Shell's eyebrows went back down to normal. Susan tilted her eyes to look at Justine and smiled a very big smile. Justine looked at Susan and smiled her proudest smile ever. She was so happy to have helped a friend. You can find this book on Amazon, e-Kindle, and not hard copy, and paperback. Bye, Emmy. And I will put the link in the Pinterest pin or on the bio if you're seeing this on Reels or TikTok. We just want as many children to read as possible, and I hope you enjoy the book.